Hey, what's going on guys? In today's video, I'm going to be doing a card analysis of Evenly Matched. This will include going over its card text, its pros, its cons, any rulings that you should know surrounding the card, and at the end I'll give my opinion on whether or not I think it should be played, and if that's the case, where it will be played, or where I think it should be played as part of your main deck or side deck. So, starting with the card text, which reads as follows. At the end of the battle phase, if your opponent controls more cards than you do, you can make your opponent banish cards from their field face down, so they control the same number of cards as you do. If you control no cards, you can activate this card from your hand. Now onto the pros and cons. The pros being that Evenly Matched is a board wipe. Specifically, it's a trap card, which means all forms of monster negation, which is the majority of negation, just doesn't do anything to it. The card isn't once per turn, which means if your opponent does actually have a way to negate a trap, while it's still the end of your battle phase, you can just activate a second one. Because the card is a trap card, it means that it's spell speed 2, which means it can actually be used in your opponent's turn. So basically after your opponent's battle phase, or at the end of your opponent's battle phase, you can just go Evenly Matched, assuming that you survive the battle phase, that is. The effect to banish actually banishes cards face down, which means they will not get their effect. An example of this would be Mirror Jade. Now, if you were to activate Evenly Matched against a branded player and they banish their Mirror Jade face down, Mirror Jade will not get its effect because it's been banished face down. And the final pro is that because the card text specifically says you make your opponent, banish cards face down, it means that Evenly Matched affects your opponent and not their cards on their fields, therefore it can get around things like immunities. And now the cons of Evenly Matched. The only real con of this card is that it requires you to use it at the end of your battle phase, as well as having no cards on the field if you intend to use it from your hand. So for example, if you're going second turn 2, you want to use it in your battle phase, you can't have used any other cards. So basically you're giving up your main phase 1, you're giving up your battle phase, and you'll need to play on main phase 2. But on the flip side of that, you've probably cleared your opponent's whole field. Now on to interesting rulings that you should be aware of if you intend to use this card, or if you actually come against this card. And the most relevant one is probably its interaction with tokens. Now, due to game mechanic, tokens in YuGiOh are unable to be banished face down. So, for example, if your opponent has a token and you successfully resolve Evenly Matched, your opponent is not allowed to select any other card except their token, because Evenly Matched makes it so your opponent must have the same number of cards as you, and assuming you've only got the Evenly Matched on field, which is what it should be, then the only card your opponent can actually keep on their field is the token. And against a deck like Sword Soul, or against a deck that's using the Adventure package, that can be pretty devastating. Now, moving on a wee bit to my opinion on where I think it should be played. Obviously, if you're a going first strategy, you probably shouldn't main deck this, as it requires you to enter your battle phase and you can't do that on your first turn. However, if you're playing a going second strategy, then the option to main deck or not does come down to a couple of things. For example, does your deck benefit in any extra way, or is it impactful enough in the current meta justifying it being main decked? I think generally if either of those two reasons apply to you, then yeah, sure, go ahead, main deck it. In terms of side deck, this card is usually seen as just a side deck staple. Absolute worst case scenario is that it will just completely blow out back row decks, so there's never a reason to not side deck it, unless for whatever reason there just isn't a back row deck and everyone's playing nothing but trap negates. But other than that, all that's left is really my opinion and where I think it should be played. Personally, I've played it my side deck ever since release, so that's where it stays for me. That might be different for you, but that makes sense. You gotta really do whatever works for your strategy, based off the pros and cons listed. And if you know any pros or cons that I've missed, please feel free to add it to the comments below so other people can look at it, and it just kind of helps everyone. But that's really it, guys. So I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please leave a like, comment a card that you'd like me to go over if there is one, and subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next video.